Today we are diving into the complexity approach, and I'm going to cover 4 rules to follow when it comes to selecting clusters. I want you to have the most powerful clusters possible to produce the optimal gains. Challenge creates change. The higher you aim, the higher the gains, period. So these are the 4 rules based on the complexity approach. I'm going to add at the end my own bonus. Number 1 rule is 3-element beat 2-element clusters. So I think of it in terms of poker. You have 3 2s, and that beats 2 aces. If you have orthographically spelled SQU blends, such as squash it to me, squish it to me, if you have a blend such as that, it's going to be more powerful than if you have a 2-element blend such as SL or FR. And the reason for that is you have 3 different manners of sound put together into a cluster. So you have there the fricative S, you have the stop K, and you have the W glide. So you have 3 different sound classes. They're all put in together. You have acrobatics going in the mouth, and you have the most complex universal sound possible, 3 clusters. So we know from these implicational universal laws that if you have 3-element clusters, then you'll have a cascading impact in which 2-element clusters can develop by working on the 3-element clusters. So go for the 3-element clusters, and I say go for them if the child can produce the 3-element cluster with a maximum level of cueing correctly. Then work at that level of cueing. The second rule when it comes to clusters is to remember that fricatives are better than stop clusters. So once again, we're using these universal laws of all languages around the world, and that a fricative sound is more complex, more difficult to produce, later developing than the stop sounds. So if we work on the fricatives, we get the stop sounds for free. If you work on the stop sounds that doesn't work like a geyser, you're not going to get the fricatives. So the first rule again is we're going to select the 3-element over the 2-element. The second rule again is we're going to select fricatives over stop sounds to get optimal gains. The third rule is we're going to partner those fricatives with liquids or glides. So with the liquids or glides, we can work on the liquid R, which is going to be the most powerful. So we've done research and we've compared the SPR blend versus the SPL blend. And we found if you work on the SPR blend, you're going to get that L for free. It doesn't work the other way around. If you work on the L blends, we were not getting the R for free. The R is a more complex, later developing sound. So speech does not develop like a geyser. If you work on earlier developing sounds, you do not improve later developing sounds. If you work on later developing sounds, you improve the earlier developing sounds. So if you are to choose between the SPR blend and the SPL blend, select the SPR blend and get the R and the L for free. So once again, if you work on the SPL, you're not going to get the SPR because later developing sounds will influence earlier developing sounds. Earlier developing sounds do not have that geyser impact in which later developing sounds will naturally develop. So the third rule is we're going to connect that fricative blend with a liquid, optimally an R. Then we have the L, and then we could also use the glide. So for the glide, you could use a W, and you also have the skew. You could skew something on, like if you're making a bracelet, you could skew the bead onto the bracelet. That would be a good SKY blend. Rule number 4 is that we are going to want to pick, if we're going to pick a stop cluster, the voiced cluster over the voiceless. Now, the reason we're going to want to pick the voiced cluster, this is really a unique reason, so pay attention to this, is the voiced stop cluster is similar to the liquid or the glide in that it is voiced. So when we have that voiced next to a voiced, that's very difficult to produce. So if it's more difficult to produce, then we are going to get the voiceless cognate for free. And it's so difficult to produce because it's similar. So if we were to pick from a GR blend or a KR blend, such as if we were to pick ground or if we're going to pick ground, okay, we would want to pick ground. And the reason we want to pick ground is the G is voiced and the R is voiced. And them being similar in their voicelessness makes them, that their voice makes it more difficult for them to produce next to each other. So if we can do the word such as ground, we can get the word crowned for free. So we're going to pick, when it does come to a stop blend, if you want to focus, for instance, on that K or G sound because the child is fronting and the child is also gliding, and you know that K or G is going to assist in the R sound, we're going to want to pick that voiced cognate. So now that leads us to my bonus rule, which I'll get to in 1 second. But let's first talk about these 4 rules of the complexity approach, in that you're going to apply if you're using the complexity approach and you want to optimize gains in your clusters. I'm going to review them really quickly. Rule 1, 3 trumps 2. Rule 2, very important to remember, is that fricatives trump stops. So we want to pick those friction earflow sounds such as the S blends or the F blends over those stop blends such as the T blend, or if we're going to predict a K blend, fricatives are going to produce maximal gains. Rule number 3 is we're going to want to partner those blends really importantly with R, number 1, if we can get that, L, or the W, or even the ya, if you want to use a word such as cue something on. And then we went into rule number 4. And rule number 4 is if you were to pick a stop cluster, make it a voiced stop cluster, and you'll get the voiceless for free. And that's because when it comes to clusters, it's harder to do a voiced liquid blend than it is to do a voiceless liquid blend, because you have that voicing next to voicing, which is more difficult to produce than a voiceless next to a voiced. So that kind of is different than the rules of development when it comes to stops, because stops in the English language, we have them aspirated. So when you produce the pa, ta, ka, you have that aspiration airflow, which is actually more difficult than the voiced cognate. However, in the cluster form, when you combine those with a liquid, it's more difficult to produce the voiced cognate. So if all things are equal, go ahead and go for the voiced cognate. Now this brings me to the final bonus. And the bonus is what I call the affricate blends TR and DR. Now in the English language, and I didn't know this because I originally thought in British English, they spoke it and they said tree or drop, but they too affricate the TR and the DR. They produce it as, if you were to say the words, for instance, if you were to say the word train, they pronounce it, if I were to say CHRAIN, it's pronounced train. Not only in American English do we do that, they also do this in British English. Originally, I didn't know that. I've been researching that, and I found it's more universal than I had originally thought. So we produce the train instead of the same thing with the DR. Instead of saying drain, we say drain. Once again, we make it into an affricate, okay? TR and DR blends. I call this a real bonus. If you're doing a summer program, definitely include the TR and DR blends because they're excellent at facilitating a nice R sound. And that's because when you produce the TR or the DR blend, what you have going on with your mouth is you have that pelletization. So you have the elevation of the tongue, and you also have your lips are protruded forward. So it's like sure. So you're making a really nice R variation when you have that. So when I start with the cha, you're going to see it, and you're going to see the R just as a continuation of it. If you're watching me on YouTube, it looks like this. And I like to cue it with a circle as if they're drinking out of a jug. And I say, chur, or the same thing with a jur. I go, Jr. As you can see, my lip position does not even change with the R. My lips are not rounded. They are protruded forward. I'm showing some nice teeth, my hungry dog teeth, which I like for any R sound. I like hungry dog teeth because if you're showing your teeth, you're not rounding those lips in many different variations. It works for the 32 variations of R. The hungry dog teeth is going to work for all of it. So what we're doing here is we're getting a nice R. And because so many of our children struggle with the R sound, I definitely like to go for those TR and DR blends. Now, if I had to choose between a TR or DR blend, what am I going to choose? Let's think about the rules. You're going to choose the DR blend, and that's because it is voiced. If we have the voiced J next to the R, you have the two voice sounds right next to each other. That is harder to produce. So if you're working on the dr sound, you're going to naturally get the tr sound. That'll be the easier cognate, the voiceless tr. So that is what we want to think about when it comes to our selecting our targets, our clusters, so that you get optimal gains over the summer. So I'm telling you this because right now I'm putting together as my SIS bonus, I'm going to give it as my SIS bonus as well, my summer home practice for my students, a little summer home practice packet. And I'm going to include, and based on these 4 rules I told you, and my bonus, we're not going to forget the TR and DR because they are fabulous for facilitating the R sound. I'm going to add that in as well. I am going to have that as this month's bonus for my SIS activities, my SIS members as well, so they can share them with their family members. But I'm feeling very good about this. And the reason I'm feeling so good about this bonus is because what I like to do is I like to use variations of the R, because there's 32 different variations of the R. And in my home practice, if you just look at me in this video, I'm going to show you, for instance, me doing an SPR blend 3-element cluster. It looks like this. Spur. You're going to see that my lips are slightly rounded, but they are pursed forward. Spur. Like that. I have hungry dog teeth in every one I'm going to show you. So if now we go to my second rule, in the fricatives being better than the then it comes to the stops. So look at my fricative R blend here. Fur. You're going to see my mouth is totally different positioned. It's a different variation of the R, but that's the way we have to attack the R, like a spider web from many different angles. And then the next one, so if I'm following my next rules and I'm going down and I'm saying, okay, now we're going to look at, we need that liquid. We need that liquid to be partnered. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, what about the children who cannot produce R? So I don't want the parents to be practicing we instead of free. So why don't I go ahead and add an L blend? So I say R is number 1, but if we can't get R, then we'll go for L. And if we can't get L, then we go for W. So then I might go ahead and say, let's go ahead and do some blends that are SL blends. So look at, as you just see, you're going to say slide, but I want you to see how my mouth is different now when I say a different blend, such as we're going to the last rule, we're going into the rule of a voiced stop blend with the R. So I'm going to say the word grasshopper, and look at when I hold that grass. I go grrr. So if you're looking at my lips are really retracted. All of my R's, I'm always going to be showing my teeth, but you're going to see grasshopper. So you're going to see in my summer home practice, I have a bit of a spider web because the different clusters I'm working on the R with. I'm not only going to get a lot of gains because I'm working on the most complex clusters, and the higher we aim, the higher the gains. So there's a cascading impact in which all of these earlier developing sounds I don't need to work on, they naturally develop. But on top of that, I'm targeting the R from multiple angles, which is very important because we can't just work on the R in one context and then we're going to have a very poorly developed R that is always going to be breaking down. So having them in different clusters and selecting different clusters to work on those R's, like I've been doing in our SIS membership for this last month, is really going to develop a very strong R from all angles. So I want to encourage you to follow these 4 rules for the complexity approach when it comes to your home practice. And instead of getting regression over the summer, you're going to get reorganization in the brain. And just like when you go to the gym and you challenge your muscles, the body changes. When you challenge, the brain reorganizes and changes. So what is summer reorganization? That's what I'm looking for with my home practice. That's what we've been doing for this whole month of May in working on these complex clusters. I want that for you as well. So thinking about following those 4 rules, thinking about adding the TR and DR blend, which are not produced dry and dry, it's produced dry. When you're producing those Affricate blends and getting those really nice R's, add that in as well. It really positions the tongue and it really positions the lips for a really strong R. So I want you to do what you do best, roll up your sleeves and make the world a better place, one child at a time. You will always be first.